We're just off Black Rock and we're making about 5.2 knots. Beautiful boat there, Leo. We're doing really well actually. Got a nice breeze coming in from the southwest and it's making for great sailing. And I'm just going to try and ease her up a little bit because I'm hoping that we can get across to that red buoy over there in the distance. Good morning. It's Monday the 25th of June. We have just raised sails and we're now proceeding into the mouth of the River Tamar. Take a look. There's the view today. We're just coming up on Devil's Point and we're making about 3.84 knots. The tide has just turned, so we're coming through on a starting to flood tide, which will give us a bit of help. Centuries it's been used by families and friends actually to wave goodbye or welcome home crews of the Royal Navy ships as they pass through the straits here on their way up to Devonport. A car park and stunning views out over Drake's Island, very popular stopping off point for picnics, things like that. It's got quite a bit of a history. There's a blockhouse on there, an artillery tower from the late 1530s, part of Henry VIII's coastal defences. During World War II there were some guns there to protect the anti-submarine booms going across the bridges in the mouth of the Tamar. It had coastal artillery searchlights, 6-pound guns. There was a fair old bit there. As you can see, we're just coming past the old Cremyll battery. It's part of the Plymouth inner sea defences from the 1860s, which protected the Royal Naval dockyard. It held 7 guns and it was fortified, I think, until the end of World War II. And it's built on an old blockhouse which dates from the 1540s, and that was occupied by Royalist forces during the English Civil War. It worked in conjunction with batteries across the way on Devil's Point. Beautiful, beautiful boat. Wow, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? It's in Stonehouse and it was the major victualling yard of the Royal Navy, and that's the Royal William Yard there just ahead of us. Early 1800s, designed by the architect Sir John Rennie. And it closed in 1992, and it's a grade 1 list of converted buildings. I think the architects and planners were Urban Splash, and they converted it to flats, restaurants, workshops. It's won a huge number of Best Conservation Awards. Back in its heyday, there were a number of major buildings in that yard. There was a cooperage, and I think they had something like about 100 coopers making barrels and kegs, where the yard produce was stored and transported. And I think the cooperage was eventually converted into a sort of machine shop and an ordnance store as the demand for barrels fell. It's the little ferry which comes across from just over the landing over there. Admiral's Hard, which is the Plymouth side, and it comes across to this slipway just over here, which is the Cremyll slipway with the pub. Very popular during the summer. That's the famous Mashford's boatyard. It's been here for about 200 years. Anne Davison in 1952 on board Felicity Ann. It was built here. A Mashford built 4-tonner. Anne Davison was the first woman who single-handedly did the transatlantic to New York. I think she took about 250 days, if I remember. Number 1 yard's part of the original South Yard. And I think that's still the original timber superstructure from 1814 above number 1 yard. As I said, it's been taken over by Will Sterling, the classic yacht restorer and boat builder. And I think it's still the oldest remaining covered slipway in the world. And it was built in 1763, about 53 metres long. And it's now a scheduled ancient monument, and it's got the same listing as Stonehenge has. Got a tourist boat just coming up behind us. We'll get some of the tour commentary in a minute or two. And behind us a nice rigged boat, I think, coming up behind as well. He's making a little bit more headway at the moment, but I have lifted out the motor, so I'm hoping that will increase. We're making about 2.8 knots, so that's not too bad. About now that I start to get distinctly nervous. I'm going to try and thread my way between the ferries, and at the moment there are 2 of the Tor Point ferries, both arriving on shore, opposite shores now. We're making about 3 knots, 3.8 knots, so we've got a fair speed on, so I'm hoping that we should come through this. And we're practically going downwind now. Up ahead, on the port side, just beyond the small craft moorings, you can see the Yonderborough jetty. That's the Thanex refuelling depot. You can just make out on the trees on the headland some of the big green fuel tanks. And I know it's being refitted at the moment, the pier. They've got some concerns about it. I think it's had a huge amount of saltwater corrosion over the years, and I think there's bids in now, and repairers started putting in anodes, things like that, to reduce the corrosion. Ooh, sirens. They're normally for a nuclear leak. I'm going to go with the assumption that they're just testing them, rather than we've actually got a nuclear leak. Yonderborough jetty. And one of the tugs just going out there. We're now coming up on the northern yard, and all its basins just the other side of that frigate. And then we're coming up here on the nuclear sub refitting. I think this dockyard is the largest naval base in Western Europe. There is the Royal Dockyard, where they were building ships. They stopped building ships around the 1970s, and now it's privatised. It also has HMS Drake at the northern end somewhere, which are the naval barracks on site, which is now the Fleet Accommodation Centre. Today, what we've got ahead of us now is just about 4 miles of waterfront. It employs about 2,500 people and service personnel, and it supports about 400 local firms. something like 10% of Plymouth's income is coming from this yard.